What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you real quick how to take from any app idea to complete development using FlutterFlow. So we're going to look at how you have this idea in your head and you don't know how to design it. We're going to design it using FlutterFlow Designer and then actually build the application using FlutterFlow itself. So this is a complete tutorial. Stick around and you don't want to miss it. If you haven't already, please be sure to check out the channel, hit the like button, subscribe, and let me know what you think about this video. So like I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a two-part series where on the first part, I'm going to show you how we are going to craft or prompt FlutterFlow Designer to design accurate screens, how we are going to come up with a database schema and everything that we need in terms of structuring the application. And also, I'm going to show you how, if you already have an existing design somewhere and you want to translate it to a FlutterFlow application, what you can do to make sure that you have your database or all the structure put in place. In the second part, we are going to actually build the application. So stick around, you don't want to miss this. Let's get directly into the video. So I'm going to start here from Claude. Everything is going to start from Claude AI. Here I'm going to prompt Claude to design the application, to recommend the database schema and everything that we need in terms of this full application. So I'm going to say something like, Messi, I need you to help me craft the interface for a personal finance app where you log your daily income and expenses by categories, and it tracks everything for you in one place. It shows you your balance, spending breakdowns, and warns you if you're going over your monthly budget. So I'm also going to add something like, I need a complete prompt from my UI design for all the screens components involved, the database schema to use for Firebase. Therefore, I highlight like I need a collection, sub-collections if they are to be, and all the fields. Then this is the key point. Ask any 3 questions for clarity if you need. So I'm giving you the opportunity to ask me about what I'm trying to build, just so it's clear about that. Right, so I'm going to send that and wait for the response. So Claude comes back with this question. So is it a multi-user application or single user? So I'm going to say multi-user with authentication. Now this is beautiful. What platforms are you building? So I'm going to say I will use FlutterFlow, just so it's clear about what I'm trying to use. I do not want to mention the architecture in the prompt, but this is a good place to clarify all of that. So let's go to the next question. Let's ask him, should budgets be set by category? I think per category, well, and this is going to be the answer. Now, the reason for per category is we can say in a month, I want to spend like $200 for food. I want to spend maybe $500 for fuel or whatever, utility. So we just create those categories and set the hard limit for those budgets. But yeah, that's the idea. Now, this is a design language. Everything, it is giving us the screens that we need, as you can see right here, from the onboarding screen, the dashboard screen, everything. It is actually giving us an accurate prompt, right? This is more than what you can do. Or if you are just prompted, let's say FlutterFlow Designer to give you the interface, it will not give you as accurate as this shows, right? So this is one useful thing that you need to implement in your workflow. So you can craft all of this. And one beautiful thing is, as it is doing all of that, it is actually knowing how the fields are going to be connected. Now it is giving us the architecture workflow. For example, in SQL, we have users. Yes, each user ID, they have their fields. We have a transaction sub-collections. We have a budget sub-collections and category. So this is just a very flat database design and it's very accurate. I like the way it is presenting everything. Just as you see here, this is cool. Anyways, let's wait for it to generate before we review in total. All right, you see this simple prompt has given us all of this. Again, I'm not going to go reading everything. We have the transactions tab, we have the budget tab, we have all of this, right? It's very interesting. The settings tab. Now, in terms of the database, we have this, all of that written, all the fields that are going to be needed. And I think we are good to go, like the sub collections and the collections and everything. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and paste it on the design prompts and paste it on FlutterFlow Designer for it to design this interface. Now we're over here on FlutterFlow Designer. We want to do a mobile application. So I'm just going to paste the prompt here, everything that I've copied from Claude, right? And yeah, so let's go and watch FlutterFlow Designer do its magic. Very, very green. We have our entry page, our dashboard. This is cool. Okay, this was not generated. Let me see. Now, Claude did a good job designing, but I do not like this interface, right? It's too colorful. This is not something I'm looking for. It is too colorful. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask it to modify it. Give me a clean design prompt with all the pages. Note, I don't want too many colors. I need a note minimal app design. Make sure all the pages match the data fields. Describe each screen in a visual manner. So some complication that I noticed here is I could easily cut this out of the video, but I'm showing you guys everything is not accurate or might not be proper. This is something I noticed here. It is trying to actually display this JSON or whatever this is. So it's not appropriate for a design interface, right, or for a UI interface. So let's ask it to rewrite the prompt to design the application again. And this time, I think it's going to do much more better. But yeah, when you're working with tools like this, you need to reiterate multiple times to get accurate results. But this is a typical example of what you should be doing and how you should be prompting and to get a much more better results. All right, so Claude is done. First off, I like this, the color palette. This is very simple. It's very minimal. It shows like that. But I think it is overdoing. Look at what it's describing for all the screens, right? A lot of details, adding color code. And if you're using a design app with not too much huge context length, or that doesn't have a lot of context length, then this is going to become troublesome. The reason, again, why I'm going through all these steps is to show you guys hands-on how all this process looks like. It's not like, hey, get a prompt, get a design, build an app. It's not as simple as that, right? So let's try this prompt that it has provided to design. Good thing, FlutterFlow Designer is still free. So I've pasted everything here, and let's see what FlutterFlow Designer is going to give us. So Designer is done, and I feel very good about this. This looks much more better, right? It doesn't look too shouty. It's minimal, and yeah, this is more like something that I want or that I can use. So I really love the way this looks, and let's look at it in light mode. It's a simple design in light mode. Interesting. So I think we can go with this, right? I love this. This is simple, minimal, and you just have to log in, sign up. There's nothing complicated. All of these have the recent transactions. You have the bottom sheet to add the transaction. Although this button is too small, I know. But one thing I noticed about FlutterFlow Designer, for now, it doesn't have like a full entire context of the whole page, so I cannot just ask it to like restructure the buttons. Or maybe I can come here on Teams and then see how I'm fixing things, but that's just another issue. It's not available here. But yeah, we're going to modify that when we are actually building the application. I'll leave it as it is. I love this, right? So we can move on to the next step. Now, I would like to highlight something. The structure or the database schema that Claude provided, right, is a lot more easier for us to secure things and make things to be user-centric. So everything is secure, and even went as far as giving us the security rules, an example security rules to use. The reason for that is because everything is just under the user collection. So we can just set rules as if something doesn't belong to this user, then they should not be able to access, modify, or delete it. Yeah, so that's just something I wanted to highlight out. Now, let's look at the other side of this spectrum, right? Let's say, for example, you already had this design, or say you saw this design from somewhere. How then can you come up with a database schema that you can use for development? Because look at it like this, it might be difficult, you might not have everything accurate, but then if you have a design like this, how can you convert all this design to a database schema that you can use for actual development? So let's look at how you can approach that. To do that, what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to export all these frames as PNG, right? And maybe this design can be on Figma, it can be on Dribble or some other inspiration from somewhere. And I have just those images, right? Maybe it's a screenshot for the app design or the app complete template that I only have, and I don't know what to do with it. So right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to design all of this interface, download all of these app screens, a zip file. So after downloading, these are all the screens that we have. Now, next, what I'm going to do, for this example, I'm going to use Gemini, right? It's obvious. Gemini has a much more, can receive much, like a lot of images, for example. So what I'm going to do is I'll upload all of those images that we have. You might need to do this in batch, but in this example, I think 8 images can sit in very well here. So I'm going to upload all of these images that we have here onto Gemini, and then ask Gemini to come up with a database schema that we can use. Now, a simple prompt like evaluate this app interface screenshot for a personal finance app and give me a complete database schema for Firebase, including all fields, collections, sub-collections, etc. Make sure it matches and reflects the UI interface. So if you're using something like Supabase or whatever thing, an SQL-based or database, then you have to do it that way. So a relational database, sorry, you have to maybe specify the kind of database that you're using that you need a schema from. Now, one of the most difficult things in building applications this way is knowing how to actually structure the database. That's why I'm emphasizing a lot of this. So when we prompt Gemini that way, Gemini should be able to give us maybe something similar to everything that we have that Claude gave us, right? So here it's saying Firebase, the user's collection has the UID, the full name. Anyways, let's just wait for it to finish before we review. All right, let's evaluate side to side what Claude proposed from starting the app design that way versus what Gemini has given us if in case we had the screenshots that we are using. So all of them, they started with the users collection, of course, which we have. The users collection has the UID, whatever thing created, updated ad. All of this looks similar, right? The full name, but I think Claude has more fields like month start day. Maybe they can choose when the month starts or whatever, but it has currency. So that's cool. We have a users collection. Gemini says we have a transaction collection. Now that's not a sub collection, but Claude says we have a transactions sub collection. And I think the fields, the most important thing is the fields if they are matching, if they're even related. So we have a type field here which matches the transaction ID, of course. So you have the amount, the node, we have a node, the category ID, have a category. Again, this is a string, but this one is pointing to references the categories sub collection, right? What do we have here? The category icon. This is just basic other additional things. But I think this is very, very good. Launch at Chipotle. It's giving us an example. Category label. So we have the month here, and we have a date here, right? I have the created ad. So the date is actually available here and on both sides. So it looks pretty much similar. So whether you're using this database, well, let's look at the other fields. So we have a budgets collection, just like it's proposed here. And we also have a budget sub collection, and everything is the same. Budget ID, the user ID. Therefore, the person, in this case, we have the person who owns this budget, and I'm sure we have user ID here. So the person who owns, who recorded these transactions. Since this is a collection, right? We need to keep track of the user who owns it. Again, it's pointing to reference to the owner, which is a document reference. So this makes sense. It's either we use this flat way of designing or this nested way of designing database schema. Now, this might have a lot more advantage in terms of querying because you don't have to go into query sub collections and whatnot. But you get the idea, right? So we have for budgets, we have category, what category it is. Yeah, the category icon month, the limit, the spent amount, the month of year, receive alert. This is cool. The alert sent if you have received any alert about that budget limit. Now the data structure visualize. This we can actually get this to Excel technical from what this thing Claude proposed. You have a categories here, so users can create their own category. But I think Gemini is already assuming that there are categories existing, so users can create their own categories and do other modifications. I love what this is all about, and yeah, that's just an example of how this thing can play out. So I think we're done with maybe scaffolding the application. The next thing we have to do is just get this design into FlutterFlow and see how we're proceeding with the development. But now, this doesn't just end here. You need to actually be sure that whatever thing it has generated can reflect the queries and also all the reads and writes that you're going to be making on this interface, right? So that's just something like maybe an exercise that you can just do, but I just wanted to show you guys the possibility of that. Over here on FlutterFlow, I'm just going to create a new project, personal finance app, for example, and let's go with that. One thing that I noticed that can be helpful if you do beforehand is to just find the font that you're already using here or the font that FlutterFlow designer came up with and set that already on your FlutterFlow application, right? So I'm going to come here on our design system and just set the fonts already. So the typography, it's TM Sans. So I'm going to look if I can find it. So I'm going to set DM Sans for both our primary and secondary fonts as this thing is specified in FlutterFlow Designer. Now with that, we are good to go to import. We are good to import the design, right? Because that's the font that it's using here. The design, FlutterFlow Designer has a way that I can highlight all of this design and just copy and paste it directly into FlutterFlow without having to do all the export, whatever. But hey, I'm old school, so I'm going to do it this way. Export to FlutterFlow and then be copied to my clipboard. Right, copied 8 screens to my clipboard. Then over here on FlutterFlow, I'm using the FlutterFlow desktop app, so I don't think we have anything to worry. So I'm going to paste it here, and this is all the new themes that it is going to import. So we have this theme palette, all the colors, we have our frames here, the authentication page and whatnot. So it detected 18 components, and then yeah, so I'm going to say apply designer theme so that it uses the theme that came from FlutterFlow Designer, and this is what we have here. So switch it to dark mode, and it should look like what we actually need for our application. Look at how beautiful that looks like. That is so cool. Now if there are any errors with this design, we can just quickly fix that because it's not any big deal. So let's view device. If you had a design Again, we can modify this design. We can go through these pages here on Designer and then actually do any modifications that we need before copy. But for this example, I'm just using it as is already existing, and we're going to go like that. So look at how beautiful that looks, right? It looks very beautiful, and we have just 4 things that we need to fix, and this is most likely some basic issues. So it's complaining about component parameter. This is just very minimal things that we can fix out, right? Now I'm going in and I'm fixing all the errors. Now this is just like component parameter naming. So according to that, we cannot, or Flutter, we cannot name a parameter beginning with an integer. So I'm just going to add something here like b, for example. So it starts with a string, and this should resolve these issues. Now, depending on whatever issue you face after importing from FlutterFlow Designer, you can just go ahead and make sure that your design is accurate, everything is functional before you proceed with your application development. So this is basically what I need. And I think we are good to go with actually designing the application. Everything we have is in place. Now, there might be a lot of components that we need to keep track of, but you get the idea. Now, I want to draw your attention to something. FlutterFlow Designer might not do an important job or a very great job at importing the design over here to FlutterFlow accurately, but this is your position to actually use this as a beginner position, as a starting point for your application design. Let's take, for example, right here, it is assuming that we are going to use like maybe some toggles and whatnot to switch between if we want to log in or sign up, which is good. But FlutterFlow has a built-in this thing that we can use, so you have to know when to adapt to things. Let's take, for example, this odd field. Look at all of this. It is using a component here. It might make sense, but you have to understand that, okay, maybe I don't want to do this. I want to actually use an input field and then do my thing the way I want it to be. Versus I can consider using like let's say theme styles components, or how do you call it? Right here we have this design system or theme widget. You can decide to use a theme widget as compared to it referring you to use multiple components, right? And as you let's go to the dashboard screen. You see, like, look at the nav bar is above here, so it's a position to know that it's trying to use a container and then do the design, whatever. It's a position to know that, hey, I'm going to translate this to the default FlutterFlow navigation bar, where it's going to have the home page, the transaction, the budget, and certain screens. Talking about the budget screen, this is the budget screen that I see all the budgets that you have spent or the user has created. The transaction screens, let's see, this way, add a new transaction, you might most likely convert this to a component, right? So it's your position to know how to adapt all of that. It's not going to be pixel perfect, at least not for now, but you get the idea of what you need to do. So over 3 transaction screens, this is a list of your transactions that you have done, if you have recorded money that you used or money that came in. So that's just the idea. Now, in the next part of this series where we're actually building the application, I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix up the interface, and we are actually going to build the application following what Claude has recommended, or Gemini, and see if we can get this application to completion. This is not something that I've done before, so we're doing it together. And if it happens to extend to maybe a 3-part or whatever, just bear with me. Now, leave in the comments, should I show how I'm cleaning up the design system or the design of FlutterFlow, or just moving to the implementation? Should I do that off camera? I'm waiting to hear on that feedback before I proceed. Thank you very much for checking out the channel. Be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about this new approach of development. Yeah, thank you very much and have a good one.